This is the OneX X1 Pro, and it's rocking the Ryzen AI 9 HX370 chip. It's a freaking beast, and today we're going to pull out all the stops and let this thing go nuts as we push it to the limit. Push it to the limit. Limit. Walk along the razor's edge. Not literally, I just mean that we're going to play games on it and see how they do. Hey there, how's it going? I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today. When the HX370 chipset was announced, I literally screamed with excitement. And then I ate because I was hungry. And then I vowed that someday, some faithful day, I would have a handheld with that chipset and I wouldn't hold back. I would push it to the limit. If you're not familiar with the Ryzen 9 HX370, it's the newest top-end mobile chip from AMD. 12 cores, 24 threads with a boost up to 5.1 GHz and an integrated Radeon 890M GPU. It's AMD's flagship Strix Point mobile APU, which replaces the Ryzen 9 8840U Hawk Point chip. It's the best of the best mobile chip that you can get in a handheld PC. And no, the AI Max Plus 395 is not a mobile chip for handhelds. Despite what some handheld makers will try to have you believe, the HX370 is the highest end practical chip that you'd actually want in a handheld that doesn't need a battery bank the size of a briefcase to use. Oh, and GPD, if you're watching this and you want to send me a Win 5 to review, I'd love to check it out. I reviewed HX370 handhelds in the past, and at first there were just a few of them around, but there's lots of them coming out now. These are not cheap doodads, but this is the price of being on the cutting edge of tech. You need to keep in mind that you're going to be getting the best of the best there is. It's sort of like when you spring for the fancy cheese at the store because it has a tiny flag in it. That flag costs $12. However, in the past, when testing the HX370, I've always done that thing that you do with handhelds and lower the TDP in the game settings and the resolution to squeeze out a good amount of game time. In my actual life, which is better than your life because it's me and not you, I go as low as I can go on the TDP and the game settings to get the game running really well at a very low TDP. Because the only thing worse than battery anxiety is nothing. There's literally nothing worse than battery anxiety. It's the most difficult thing a human should have to endure. But that only paints a part of the picture because some people don't want to do that. Some people want to crank up the power and let their handhelds go all out. Battery be damned. Or maybe they're docking it to their TV or whatever, where battery isn't a concern. So that's what I want to find out today. What can the HX370 really do when you give it all the power and don't hold back? Can it do this? No, of course it can't. It's a CPU, not a TechDweeb. And it's kind of weird that I have to explain that to you. I'm really excited because our test subject today is the OneX X1 Pro. I asked OneX nicely if they'd send me the HX370 version so that I can make this video. I've reviewed the OneX X1 before. I made a video about it and I did a bunch of gaming on it there, and I also did the whole unboxing and tour and review. So go check out that video, link below if you want to know more about this thing. The X1 Pro is the same handheld. It's exactly the same form factor, the same screen, same controls, even the same ports. Everything is the same except the chip. The OneX X1 used the 8840U, but the X1 Pro is powered by the HX370. This is amazing because the OneX X1 was a freaking beast. It had more or less top-end performance from the 8840U because of the ample cooling and huge battery. Super fast RAM. I'm expecting big things from the big APU upgrade in the Pro version. Another reason this is a great handheld for this test is the screen. This is a huge screen, 11 inches, 2560 by 1600 resolution, and a 120 Hz refresh rate. So we'll need a chip that can push some serious pixels if we're going to be playing natively. I'll give you my thoughts on the OneX X1 Pro at the end of the video, but the main thing that I want to do is play some games and see what we can get out of this thing. The goal is to crank the TDP up as high as it will go, all the way up to 30 watts, and then we'll see how high we can crank the settings for the games to get them looking great and running great. Obviously, if we lower the settings down to the minimum, we'll get much higher FPS, and if we crank the settings to ultra, we're going to get some pretty crappy FPS. This is still a mobile chip, and lots of these games are designed to challenge even top-end desktop GPUs, so the goal I'm going to set is just a good playable FPS, and that'll be different depending on the game. And we'll just see how good we can get the games looking with those targets. So with all that out of the way, it is time to pull up our socks, crack a root beer, and play some frickin' games, why not? Starting with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. The reason we're starting with this one is that I always use it to test, so it's easy to compare performance between different devices, but I also want to do a quick series of benchmarks to see how well the CPU scales across the TDP ranges. I'm not going to be doing this scaling test with all the games. We'll be running with full 30 watts for everything else, but we'll do different TDPs just for this first one, which should be enough to give us an idea of the TDP scaling. This is running at 1080p native with the low settings, just to let our numbers get higher. We'll start at the high end. At a 30 watt TDP, we're getting 53 FPS on average. Going down to 25 watts, we drop down to 52 FPS on average, and down to 20 watts, we drop down to 50 FPS on average. At 18 watts, we get 49 FPS. At 15 watts, we get 44. Down at 12 watts, we're getting 31 FPS. At 10 watts, it's 24 FPS. And at 8 watts, we're down to just 16 FPS. And it won't let me go lower than 6.7 watts. If I set it to 5 watts, it gets stuck at 6.7 watts. I think this CPU knows that it needs more juice than 5 watts for a task like this. Here at 6.7 watts, we're getting 12 FPS on average. And when we graph this, you can clearly see how the FPS scales. Once you get up to 18 watts, you're pretty much where you need to be. Anything beyond that, and you very quickly get into diminishing returns territory. You're going to be getting similar FPS, but you'll be using a lot more battery. So, really, there's no reason that you'd want to go above 18 watts in a game like this, especially if you're in handheld mode. Or any game, really. Keeping in mind that this is a mobile chip and at a 30 watt TDP budget, I'd be aiming for around 45 FPS in this game, I think. On other handhelds, I'd be fine with a bit lower, but we don't get variable refresh rate on the X1 Pro, so even though this display can go up to 120 FPS, there's no way I'd be aiming for that in a game like this. With a 45 FPS target, I was able to play at the medium preset, 1600p, but with 60% resolution scale, which is about 960p, and I got around 47 FPS on average like this. It's not like desktop impressive, but it's certainly impressive for a handheld. And like I said, you get pretty similar results at 18 watts if you were trying to save on battery. Here's Assassin's Creed Shadows. This is running at 1920 by 1200 with the low preset, performance FSR, and FrameGen on. Those are not impressive settings, but that's what we need to do to get a really good frame rate here. We're getting over 60 FPS here most of the time. Obviously, frame generation is contentious. Not everyone likes it. In single player games like this, I have no problem using it. I like it a lot. I'm getting lots of extra frames is great, and I don't notice any latency in games like Assassin's Creed Shadows. These settings aren't super impressive, but this is a very demanding game. You will not get this game running well on many handhelds, even with all the tweaks. And this is a big screen, almost 11 inches, but it's not like a 24 or 32 inch PC monitor or anything. When you have to make compromises in the resolution and use FSR and stuff, you really don't notice it as much on a handheld screen, even a giant handheld screen like this one. Let's do some Cyberpunk next, and here I was able to run at 2560 by 1600 with the medium preset, performance FSR, no ray tracing, and I was getting around 35 frames per second. I know performance FSR has a bad reputation, but this is running at 1600p on an 11-inch screen, which is so crazy high pixel density that even with performance FSR, you won't notice it much. Obviously, we could have run at native 1200p or even 800p and got a lot more performance, but hey, this is the trade-off that I chose. Even though this is a first-person shooter, this is still very much a sightseeing game for me. I like to look around and drool at all the pretty graphics and look around the city and see all the fine details. So in a game like this, I choose to play at higher settings as long as I'm getting above 30 FPS. And at low settings, you get more like 45 to 50 FPS. And you can enable the dynamic resolution scaling option to target 60 FPS or whatever you want to play at, if you're okay with the resolution switching around on you. And now it's time for some
Doom, the Dark Ages.
This is 1600p with ultra performance FSR and the low preset and frame gen on, and I was able to squeeze out 48 FPS, but I am not impressed with the performance here. At times, the game even felt like it was slowing down, moving in slow motion, lots of stutters. It's playable, but it's just not great. And this is not necessarily an issue with the X1 Pro because this game runs like trash on all these AMD APUs. Even my high-end mini PCs, this game doesn't do well. I don't know if it's the forced ray tracing or what, but it's a shame because Doom and Doom Eternal were so well optimized. You could run those games on lightweight hardware, no problem. But with Doom the Dark Ages, there's no way to lower the graphics enough to get it running well. Considering that this is a fast-paced game, I think that's a misstep for them not to allow optimizations for lower-end hardware. And then the game crashed when I opened my minimap. So there's that. Here we have The Witcher 3 running at 2560 by 1600 with balanced FSR and a medium-high settings mix with no frame gen, and we got some pretty great performance here. FPS in the mid-70s, low 80s. This is just awesome. This game is really demanding when running in DX12 mode with the enhancements they added, and it's running beautifully here on the HX370. This game is like the opposite of Doom Eternal, in that it's super well optimized and it runs great on all sorts of hardware. And it even offers a legacy DX11 mode that you can run on a literal potato. And this is exactly the kind of game that I like to see running well, big open world action RPGs, because these are the kind of games that I love to play on handhelds. And let's play something a bit easier to run. This is Forza Horizon 4. I don't have Forza 5, so Forza 4 will have to do. This is running at 1200p native with the high preset, and I even still managed to get around 100 FPS on average, sometimes over that. This is cool because racing games are one genre that I like very high FPS values. I tend to get motion sick if I'm driving fast and the frame rate doesn't make me feel immersed. You can't see it in the video, but trust me, when you see this one running on the screen of the X1 with its high refresh rate display at over 100 FPS, it's a glorious thing. However, there is room to improve in the future. Even though it looks amazing, this game is pretty easy to run by today's standards. I think future AMD APUs will make the HX370 look like a slouch when they can run games like this at like 1600p native and ultra settings that get crazy high FPS. And speaking of crazy high FPS, I wanted to see how high we could get the FPS in Half-Life 2. This is 1600p native with the highest settings, and this is a very old game, obviously, and I got like 160 FPS on average. I was actually expecting more here. This game is super old and it runs on anything. This is 1600p native though, so you get a lot more if you scale down the resolution, but like, hey, if you wanted to play Half-Life 2 and you had an X1 Pro, you can play it at maxed out settings and max out that 120Hz screen. This game is so dang good. Every time I fire it up to test, I'm tempted to replay it. Crazy how well this one holds up even now over 20 years later. And yeah, there you go. That's kind of it. That's the goal of the video, to let the HX370 go all out and see what it can do. It's a beast of a mobile chip, but as you can see, even a beastly mobile chip can't hold a candle to a desktop PC with a dedicated GPU. You're trading off a lot of horsepower so you can play games in your hands while you sit on the couch, or the train, or the toilet. Let's be honest. And I wanted to end with a bit about the X1 Pro itself, why I like it, and maybe help you decide if it's right for you. And there's really a lot to like about this thing. The detachable controllers are so cool. You can use this middle controller holder thing to use these as an external controller, or connect them up to the sides of the device to use it like a giant handheld, or take them off and just use it like a little mini laptop. The versatility and flexibility here is super nice, being able to use it in lots of different ways. The big gorgeous screen is the best part though. When you play on lots of handhelds like me and you're used to the smaller screens, being able to game on a tablet-sized screen is a pretty glorious thing. There's a few things I'm not a big fan of though. The controls themselves are a bit on the cheap side. They're all clicky micro switch and they're not super satisfying. They're fine to use, they just don't feel as good as other handhelds. The screen is a native portrait display and it's rotated, so sometimes if you run a full screen game, the HDMI output gets rotated. I was encountering that as I was capturing footage for this video. And it does it there even though it looks fine on the display of the device. That's a quirk with all these native portrait displays though. And it's just a bit annoying in those rare circumstances when you need a full screen output. And my biggest gripe is Windows. This thing is running Windows, which just kills so much of my enjoyment for a handheld PC. I love SteamOS on my Steam Deck and Bazzite on my ROG Ally and my GPD Win 4. Apparently you can install Bazzite on the X1 Pro, and I have a feeling I'd like this a lot more if I did that. And I probably will. I'll be saving that project for a rainy day. And there's a few other quirks to the X1, mostly related to the form factor, but overall, I just like it a lot. It is such a fun device. It's so interesting that you can use it in so many different ways. It's not going to be for everyone, and it's not cheap, but for those that want what it does and don't mind paying for the premium chip and hardware, you'll have a ton of fun with this thing. And if you think it's too expensive, if you think it's too much for you, then just get a Steam Deck. Just get a Steam Deck. Just get a Steam Deck. Push it to the limit. But that's it. That's all I wanted to show you today. I hope you found this helpful or at least entertaining. Click the thumbs up button if you liked the video, or don't if you didn't. That's it from me. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.